a reminder.
I'm gonna reset it. Oh, yeah. It's good. Okay, sick.
Okay.
I'm gonna take this off, and then it should just be like a 6-second delay, I think it is.
Okay, so this is just reminding me the sound's probably picking us up right now. So just be aware of what you're saying.
The delay should be that.
Oh.
Oh.
Cool. So we can close these a little bit. I also see, this is why I'm wondering if there's something we can press to mute.
What's wrong with the lights? They're not coming on.
So we're inputting audio right now, right? So I wonder if we put this scene.
It's I can't get it off. We're not doing this playing.
Okay, will you say like pizza or something, and then we can see if I can hear it?
Yeah.
Say some crazy statement.
Watermelon. Watermelon?
Did everyone else?
No, I just asked to leave class already.
Nice.
I just asked, I was like, I need to go to the rock. Can I leave? Yes, sir. He's like, sure.
Yeah, that's not working. So it's just gonna pick up all of our audio.
Well, we can close that for now. But then it's just gonna
Okay,
pick up
so
audio.
you guys, it is picking up all audio. I just want everyone to be aware. Everything you say in this room is in there. So,
We should close the windows. And then we can just close the windows and we'll cover stuff. And then it'll hear them talking, but that's it.
hopefully, yes, we can close it. Still, though, I would be, just from experience, I'd be careful. I think we're good. If you want to pull up the stream in my room, make sure it's like stream and sounds good. I just said
Okay. That's not.
yeah.
That's
this one close too?
Don't close this one. Don't close this.
Yeah, and this can be by the camera. Will you go by the camera?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
The lights are stuck on Middletown, so
Where's Mr. Wolf?
He was just here.
Let's get him to fix the
he's
lights.
all the way up there.
Will you go talk to him and then you can go to the camera afterwards? Let's see if we need lights.
Can we mute the audio on the mic? On the actual
Camera.
Oh, like we're gonna.
I don't know. I was trying to mess around with that. You can go see. Yeah. You're gonna do it on my computer, and it's gonna be. I wish we could just pull. So, is the mic on yet?
We're receiving something.
Yeah, I think it's from that camera though.
Okay.
So, like, you know where? So he's standing here. I'm Candace from each group is going to get something over. So let's move the chair out of the way and stuff.
So we're gonna move that chair. Where should we stand here?
Yep, you'll be standing right here. We're going to turn the camera around and do it there.
Alright.
We should really try to figure out how we can mute. Is this for later? Yeah. Okay, cool. There's gotta be a way to mute them.
You're missing out to tell us if it stopped.
Okay. Hi.
Is it working?
Do you know how to mute the audio from,
The camera?
or just in general?
Well, depending, like if this is the audio, go like that.
Oh, I think so which one?
This is the one that's currently audioing. There's nothing coming in through that.
That's
one.
because the mic's not
Test. Oh, test. Test. Oh. Test, 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 test. This one doesn't see. Oh.
So I'm gonna introduce Noah first. So yeah. It's quieter than the other one.
When you're giving your statement, you'll stand, and then sit down, and then you'll stand, and then sit down. And then for debate, you'll both just kind of stand, whichever. Cool. They'll come from over here.
Yo, what's in my mother? If you got money, Justin, you a hell. Vote Justin today.
Come in and take a seat. Come in and take a seat.
Everyone, get yourselves seated. We will begin shortly.
That one's really quiet. Find a seat, everybody. Let's get moving.
Turn us up, please.
Do you see me peeking anywhere? No? Yeah, no? Okay. Everyone, get yourselves seated. Use one of the other mics right now. Use one of the other mics. Everyone, get yourselves seated. We will begin shortly. Okay, unplug it. We're just gonna get moved over.
A lot of folks in back moving forward to really add some pressure to it. Hey, so teachers and folks in back, as we wait for our last groups to come in, can you guys fill in the front? We don't need 30 people sitting in the back row, so if you guys can stand up and move closer to the front, please, that would be awesome.
Speaking into the mic, it's not working. Speaking into the mic. All right, I'm speaking into the mic right now. Can y'all hear me? Yeah? All right, there, finally. Okay. Everyone get seated. We're going to begin shortly.
Welcome everybody to the 2022 Eagle Valley High School presidential debate. Thank you for coming down. Thank you for your excitement. These groups have put a lot of time and effort into this, and I'm excited for you to get to hear their views and their stances. A couple of things. I am going to ask that we as an audience be quiet and respectful during this. Because we want to be able to hear what they have to say, and so if you all are being chatty, it makes it hard for us to do that. So please keep quiet, listen, be engaged so you can tell your classmates and your schoolmates how you plan to vote on Friday, because that's when the election will be officially taking place. The first person that I would like to introduce is Alvaro Marin Garcia. Come on up, Alvaro. Yeah, give it up for Alvaro. Alvaro will be our moderator today. He's going to be the one that asks the questions, introduces the candidates, and makes sure that all of our procedures run smoothly. And so I'm going to turn things over to him and give him an opportunity to introduce himself, the candidates, in this debate. Thank you all for being here.
All right, welcome everyone to the 2022 presidential debate for the AP United States Government and Politics class. My name is Alvaro Marin Garcia, and I'll be the moderator for today's debate. All right, before this debate begins, I'd like to thank my speech and debate coaches, Mrs. Unavi, Mr. Wolf, and Ms. Moulton for being amazing coaches to me. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Gleis for teaching an amazing AP government class. Let's maintain a respectful atmosphere for today's debate. Please refrain from cheering or booing while a candidate is answering a question. The format for today's debate is as follows. Each candidate will provide a 2-minute opening statement to the audience. Then I will ask a question and allow each candidate to answer for 1 minute. And then open the debate between the candidates will follow for 2 minutes. Then we'll move on to the next question and repeat the pattern. The topic areas for today's debate are immigration, gun control, healthcare, and inflation. The field began last week on Monday with 4 candidates. Today, only 2 remain. No cheers or boos except for right now, as we introduce our 2 candidates. From the Slippery Seals Socialist Party, Noah Rudin. And from the Bag Party, Justin Vargas. Thank you, candidates. You have been allowed to craft opening statements to the audience. Justin and Noah, you have 2 minutes to make your case to the audience for why they should elect you as President of the United States. Noah, you may go first. You have 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, today marks the start of something great. Today marks the start of a new beginning, one where our government will focus not only on the present, but the future of our people and our great nation. Our nation requires both equality and justice, and for that, I urge you to join myself and my colleagues in supporting the Slippery Seal Socialists. But what does that support actually mean? We ensure that, number one, immigration not only continually thrives by ensuring that people can move into this nation legally. Number two, we stand against gun control because it's the only equitable thing to do. But beyond being equitable, it gives our country a solution to gun violence. We ensure that healthcare is a right that would stop medical bankruptcies, improve public health, reduce overall health issues, and help small businesses. And we believe that healthcare should be an essential government service. We have a solution to inflation that keeps both the environment and the economy in mind. So today, ladies and gentlemen, there is only one candidate that deserves your vote. Personally, I cannot see it be anyone but me and my colleagues with the Slippery Seal Socialists. Thank you.
Justin, you may go next. You have 2 minutes.
Hello. As you all know, I am Justin Vargas, and I stand with the Bag Party. I take a pro-American stance with my policies being in place to benefit the average American, such as you all. As opposed to my opponent, my policies will actually benefit the majority. Above all, I want to prioritize the health and well-being of you all. While I am pro-government, I still want the little man to be able to have a say. I also believe in reallocating government funds within the United States to ensure that we secure our spot as the #1 country. I mean, what do both the Russian and Chinese governments have in common? They're socialist, and they suck. Thank you. We must ensure that we do not fall behind politically and economically, meaning that I vow to cut inflation and create a more unified nation. I will also give more funds to the USA soccer team to ensure that we never lose to the Netherlands again, and we also will always be England. That's right, that's right. I will end the Chinese trade war, which will vastly decrease inflation. When it comes to gun control, I am pro-2A, but I want to make sure that firearms do not get into the hands of the wrong people. The common denominator behind tragic shootings is that the shooter comes from a background of poor mental health. That being said, I promise to increase support programs for those with poor mental health. This will make sure that gun violence stops at its roots, and we will not have to suffer these tragic shootings any longer. Ultimately, today, you have the choice to vote between a prosperous nation or one in stagnation, between freedom and restraint, between a nation that is unified or a nation in shambles. I think it's clear which candidate supports which. A vote for Justin is a vote for keeping your freedoms and your liberties. After all, I hope you support the Bag Party, and come on, we've got this in the bag. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates. My first question is on immigration. There is undoubtedly a crisis at the southern border. In the 2021 fiscal year, United States Customs and Border Enforcement encountered 1.7 million undocumented immigrants at the southern border, the highest number recorded ever in a single year. Many of them claim asylum. Given unstable political conditions in the Central American and South American region, they come to the United States to claim new lives. How will you work on revamping the immigration system to account for those who seek asylum? Justin, you will answer first for 1 minute.
All right. Of course, I acknowledge that there is a significant issue at the southern border right now, and I want to make sure that these immigrants seeking to come into our country do so in a safe manner and an easy manner. Right now, I advocate for free borders and support programs at the southern border. Increasing our support programs ensures that immigrants trying to seek our great country have the opportunity to do so both safely and quickly. While my opponent advocates for open border policies, while this may sound good in theory, we only see that this causes more turmoil at the southern border. In fact, several studies have shown that open borders actually increase the unsafe conditions that immigrants must face. For that reason, I strongly advocate for free borders along with more support programs that will actually make the border safer. After all, we see that on my party, we support our immigrants coming into our country safely and securely. For that reason, I see no other vote than anything other than my party. Thank you.
All right. Noah, same question. How will you work on revamping the immigration system to account for those who seek asylum? 1 minute.
I'd just like to start by saying, to sustain a stable population, you need a fertility rate of around 2.1. Right now, America's is at 1.64. We are reliant on these immigration populations to keep our society running. They're the cogs that keep our society moving, the minds that advance our technology, and to many of us, they're our friends and our family. What separates us from most other countries in the world is that a majority of our population had ancestors who decided to brave the unknown and leave the safety of their societies to come to America and try to get a better life for themselves and their families. Why should we be able to tell these immigrants, no, you're not allowed to come here because you might not be safe or it's not secure to let you come into our country? We have all been blessed to be able to live here, and it is a great nation that we have. Why should we try to keep others out? We should be letting people come in. Thank you.
Okay. We will now be transitioning into free and open-flowing debate between the two candidates for 2 minutes. Justin, you can begin.
All right, so I noticed in your last speech, you didn't once mention open borders, which is what your whole campaign has been running on thus far. Do you support open borders?
Yeah, I support open borders. I think that we should have people be able to come into our country and maybe have people like come through places and be, hey, these people aren't criminals, they don't have contraband. You know, I think it's a problem because we make it a problem.
Can I have a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
So we see right now that in countries such as the European Union, which operates on an open border system, they have one of the worst immigrant crises in the world. How will you ensure that the United States does not destined to the same fate?
Well, number one, we need these immigrants. It's not a burden on us. Like, we should be letting these people...
I'm not claiming that. I'm
Okay.
asking you, how will we prevent the situation that the European Union is facing right now?
Which is having immigrants come in?
No,
How is that a burden?
No, I'm not claiming that we shouldn't let immigrants in. I'm claiming that we need to have free borders and increased support programs. However, you're advocating for open borders, which according to my studies only increase the amount of unsafe conditions immigrants have to follow. Look no further than the European Union, which operates on open borders and have some of the worst conditions.
Well, I'm talking about America, and I don't think I should be able to choose who gets to come in and come out. I think it's a problem because we make it a problem. When we tell people that they're illegal aliens and we say, you're not allowed to come, you're illegal, you're not welcome, I think we're the ones who are making that a problem.
Have I ever claimed that? Have I ever stated that I will not let immigrants in?
Did I say you claimed that, or did I say that was my point?
You inferred it. You just inferred it.
I may have inferred, you may have taken as an inference, but did I say that, or are you just coming up with stuff?
Thus far, we both agree that immigrants should be able to come into our country. However, I advocate for free borders, you advocate for open borders. And the difference between the two is open borders create more unsafe conditions. So what will you do to fix that?
I mean, I'm just gonna let people come in. I don't think we need to, I think people should be allowed to come in. I don't think we should be the people in charge of saying who gets to come in and put out. Who put you in the, well, you're saying you're gonna make it a secure border, which infers,
secure. I said
you used that in your opening statement for this.
I said we will increase the program.
Thank you.
That's time, thank you.
As a reminder to the audience, please remain silent while the candidates are speaking so we can get all the responses in a time frame. The next question is on gun control. In the 2022 year thus far, over 619 mass shootings have been reported in the United States. That is more than one per day. The number one cause of death for children in the United States now is gun violence. Given that gun violence is a contentious issue in American politics, and many different solutions have been proposed to mitigate gun violence, how will your gun policy provide assurance to voters fearful of rising gun violence? Noah, you may answer first. You have 1 minute.
So if we look at active shooter incidents, this is a study by the FBI, which is defined as one or more individual actively engaged killings or attempting to kill people in a populated area. Using the FBI's definition, 38 people died, excluding the shooters, in 2020. If we define mass shootings as incidents in which 4 or more people are shot, even if no one was killed, again excluding the shooters, this leaves us at 513 people dead. It's a tragic thing to have these people die, but gun violence as a total was up in the 40,000s, with 29%, or with about over half of those deaths being suicides. I think that a lot of gun violence is mental health related. It's not about the guns itself. I think, considering that the vast majority of these gun crimes are murder, I think it comes down to people need the right to defend themselves. I think people should be able to, legal, law-abiding citizens should be able to obtain firearms and not have to worry about, oh, I can't obtain this, or I can't have a right to a firearm or to concealed carry, because it's a very expensive thing to do. I think people should have the right to equally defend themselves. Thank you.
Justin, you may answer next. How will your gun policy provide assurance to voters fearful of rising gun violence?
Obviously, we do need to take initiative in ensuring that gun violence is significantly lessened. Several studies show that gun violence is often due due to people with poor mental health getting behind a firearm. And I don't want to let this happen any longer. The way that I vow to decrease this is to increase the amount of mental health programs in the United States, particularly within the youth. If we target gun violence at its roots, which oftentimes is people with poor mental health, and we target that poor mental health, we can ensure that gun violence is not an issue. This not only allows the American people to maintain their Second Amendment rights, but also ensures that gun violence is not an issue that we have to worry about any longer. My opponent advocates for every citizen to be armed. While he didn't explicitly say that in his last speech, that is what his campaign has been running on, and so I want to talk about that briefly. He advocates for every citizen being armed. However, all this does is it allows for the immoral minority of our population to have more power. This is not a nation that anybody wants to be living in. And for that reason, if we increase our mental health programs and keep the Second Amendment alive, I see that as an ultimate plus for the American people. Thank you.
We will now be transitioning into free and open-flowing debate between the two candidates for 2 minutes. Noah, you may begin.
So if you were to check on our website, we do also advocate that people have to pass background checks and mental health checks. And I'd just like to say that you didn't cover any actual gun control. You just talked about mental health, which is not what this is on.
Right, well, when we look at, we're talking about gun violence right now and gun control, of course. However, we need to look at the root of gun violence. Obviously, right now, we already do have background checks, and we see that while we could increase these, I'm not saying that we couldn't, these ultimately don't work. We need to attack gun violence at its roots, which is mental health. And while you claim to say that we increase mental health programs, this is the first I'm hearing about this from you. So that's all I have to say.
Could
I have
check
a question?
the website.
May I have a question? When arming every citizen as you advocate for, how do you ensure that the guns stay in the arms of the good people and that the bad people won't negatively use this power?
Well, I think the big risk of having a lot more gun restrictions is, law-abiding citizens, they will be the main people that are targeted by this. Criminals will find a way to get guns either way. If we as the government are able to kind of sponsor these and be able to put serial numbers and be able to keep track of all these guns, we will be able to know what gun belongs to who in crimes. It'll help us track them easily.
But that's not your policy, is it? You've never mentioned this before. You want to arm every citizen, correct?
I want to arm every citizen that is able to pass a mental health check, if they so please, which is on my website. If you want to look at my website, you can, Justin.
I did this morning. It did not say that.
Well, obviously you didn't look because that's what it says. We believe in mental health checks.
Right. So you want to arm every citizen, essentially, as long as they pass a background check. How does this actually help solve gun violence? When gun violence isn't because of poor background checks, it's because of poor mental health. Well, and I'm the only candidate advocating for more mental health programs.
As I just said, I also believe that it's a big mental health issue. But the majority of, besides suicides, which is the majority of gun deaths, the next leading one is murder. I think that comes down to people not being able to defend themselves. If I have a gun in here and nobody else does, I can cause the most casualties. If I have a gun and if somebody else had a gun in here, I wouldn't be able to have nearly as much casualties.
How will you ensure that these citizens take the proper gun training to make sure that they know how to use these firearms?
Thank you, candidates.
Thank you.
The next question will be on healthcare. More than 27 million Americans still lack proper healthcare. More than 45% of American adults say it's difficult to afford healthcare, and more than 40% have medical debt. Black, Latino, and Indigenous groups are more likely to receive lesser quality care. How will your health policy work to fix the issues presented in America today? Justin, you may answer the question first. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Healthcare is a very important issue that needs to be addressed in today's debate. Rather than doing what my opponent suggests and making it free for all, which would significantly increase taxes, I propose that we fix the issue at its root. We need to fix the health in America. Right now, public health in America is severely underfunded, yet we have one of the largest militaries in the world with an inflated budget. If we move some of those funds from the military into increasing our public health, the increased price of public health wouldn't even matter because we would have better health to begin with. If we increase our public health, there is therefore not as much of a need for healthcare. And so, and again, as I said with my gun control, if we attack the problem at its roots, we eradicate the issue completely. And making sure that America has more and better public health, we not only ensure that our taxes for our citizens stay low, ensuring that everybody is happy, but we also therefore eradicate the need for healthcare. I would also like to reform healthcare at its roots. A study from Harvard shows that healthcare is ultimately flawed because it is several disconnected parts rather than one major system. And that is why it is partially so expensive. And so rather than making these disconnected systems free, which is what my opponent advocates for.
Thank you, Mr. Gargs.
Thank you.
Okay. Noah, you may answer next. How will your health policy work to fix the issues presented in America today? You have 1 minute.
So, as you heard from my opponent, I do believe in free healthcare. I believe free healthcare will not only provide all Americans with better health and security, particularly for working people in the working class, knowing they'll never be reduced to poverty by medical expenses. Its financial returns to society economically from both improved workforce and reformed healthcare system will far exceed any cost of the program in taxes. A right to healthcare should stop medical bankruptcies, improve public health, and reduce overall healthcare spending. Help small businesses, and we believe that healthcare should be sponsored by the government. Providing free healthcare is a big financial burden, but in the fear of destroying the open market diversity when it comes to employment in the US, we will still have very moderate income taxes. We will obtain the finances we need from addictive vice taxes. This will allow us to fund public services like healthcare and keep the American spirit and freedom alive without taking out one of our biggest economical advantages, which is our giant military. Thank you.
Okay, we will now be transitioning into free and open flowing debate between the two candidates. Justin, you may begin for 2 minutes.
Perfect, thank you. So you talk a lot about healthcare and how you want to ensure that people such as in poverty have access to healthcare, but wouldn't you agree that socialism at itself, which is what you advocate for, actually increases the poverty gap and makes more people go into poverty? So with that being said, is healthcare really that important when your citizens are going to be in poverty because of your socialistic ideals?
Well, as I said, with our taxes, we're going to take more out of vice taxes than we would income taxes, which was one of the reasons people have that big poverty gap. So if we take away that issue, that makes that pretty much non-existent.
Right, well, if we look at countries like China, which is the socialist face, we see that nearly 800 million people are in poverty, and these people don't have access to healthcare. So regardless of whether or not healthcare is free, wouldn't you agree that socialism at its roots increases the amount of poverty that our citizens will have to deal with? And so at that point, what is healthcare if our citizens are dying because of poverty?
I think it could if you do it wrong, but because I'm taking this out of vice taxes and it will not impoverish people. Vice taxes is a sin tax. It's not going to hurt people
The issue with poverty is not, or the issue with socialism is not taxes. I'm not saying that poverty will rise because of these taxes. We see that in a socialistic government, while it may seem good in theory, in practice, regardless of the taxes, people end up in poverty. So what will you do to make sure, regardless of taxes, because taxes aren't the issue, that these people will not end up in poverty?
As I said, I'm going to do a vice tax, which is different. So what causes poverty in socialism?
Right, so when we look at socialist countries, we see that in theory, everybody has an equal share of wealth. However, when that happens, people become less motivated. In order for a market to run, we need more money being put into the market and more workers. In the socialist economy, we find that there aren't those workers to run the economy, which increases poverty.
So because we're not sharing the wealth, because we're not doing an income tax, which is what you're talking about,
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, that's what it means when everyone has the exact same shared wealth. It's
so
because
do you not
everyone
support
is
socialism? I thought you were
I support
the
aspects of
socialist.
it. We like in the U.S. we are a capitalistic society with socialist things. Like we have socialist.
So you're against
stuff.
the motto of your party.
I believe in parts of it, and I think it can be used very well.
The final question will be on inflation. Inflation is sitting at 7.7% compared to this month last year, according to the most recent numbers provided by the United States Consumer Price Index. Around 1.5 million Americans have had to unretire and go back to work because inflation has shrunk the value of their money. Inflation is a largely interconnected issue with not one sole culprit responsible. How will your domestic and/or international policy work to ease inflation? Noah, you may answer first for 1 minute.
So first of all, one of the big causes of inflation is too much government spending. We spend on K-12 education around $800 billion every single year. That was the 2018 to 2019 how much we spent. That's almost $1 trillion. I think what we need to do, first of all, is we need to get rid of high school and the need for college. We are blessed to live in a society with incredible amounts of information at our fingertips. We should be able to decide what careers we want to pursue and ignore relevant information. If somebody wants to be a welder, why should they have to go to sophomore history to learn about like Neolithic history? What does that have to do with what they want to do in life? We should also make a K-8 curriculum that helps teach kids to go back to their roots and survive. This would be known as self-care curriculum, and it would teach kids how to grow food, take care of animals, and find basic supplies in their life. I think if we're able to be self-dependent and rely on ourselves, number one, we're not going to need to be in trillions of dollars to debt to these other countries where we have to take everything from. If we're able to be solely reliant, then we can reach out to other countries and be able to get what's good for us, not be dependent on these other places. We can create a test that can show
Thank you, Noah.
comprehension.
Justin, you can answer next. How will your domestic and/or international policy work to ease inflation? 1 minute.
Right, so one of the biggest ways that I seek to reduce inflation is through my foreign policy. Most of our inflation is actually because of our reliance on other countries for basic goods. I mean, look no further than China and Russia. We rely on China for the most of our goods, and even when the Russia-Ukraine invasion happened, we saw inflation spike because we rely on Russia so much for goods. That being said, I seek to increase our domestic reliance on these goods, which will not only increase the United States' power as a whole, but will also ensure that Russia and China become weaker countries, because ultimately they rely on the United States as well. If we make sure to cut these ties with these militaristic and oppressive countries, we not only ensure that the United States is in a better position to increase its domestic stability, but also these other countries will not have the means to do actions like Russia did to Ukraine. And so for that reason, to battle inflation, my foreign policy will ensure that we do not have to rely on these countries for goods. Thank you.
We will now be transitioning into free and open-flowing debate between the two candidates for 2 minutes. Noah, you may begin.
So, clarifying question. Did you say you want to buy more from the countries? I actually just didn't.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
I thought I heard you say you want to like spend more money with these countries and grow closer ties. I just didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
What I'm saying is that we need to cut our reliance on these countries and we need to increase domestic innovation. By increasing domestic innovation, we ensure that ultimately we are not reliant on these countries, which is why our inflation is so bad ultimately right now. So I have a question. You talk about how we need to get rid of education. Wouldn't you agree that countries with higher GDPs on average have more educated citizens?
Well, yes, I would, but I'm not saying get rid of education. I said high school. I think that we should have more trade schools.
Is education possible without high school?
I think, yeah. I think we have people learning online. We had a COVID year where people were learning online. I think we have so much information at our fingertips. Why should we be required to come here and learn when we can go to a trade school and have tests that show us what we need to do for our job? What I want to do.
Teachers that rely on high school for their jobs. What about the job loss that will come out of a result? Is that?
Teaching jobs?
Yeah, so many high school teachers right now rely on teaching high school. What will all those teachers do that have their jobs lost because of that?
Well, you can do stuff online. They can either get a different job. If it's not useful, why should they have their job?
Hear that? Get a different job. That's what Noah wants you to do. Get a different job.
Or they can teach. I said also having trade schools. If their profession is something that a lot of people want to go into, then they will be able to find jobs. If no one wants to be an English teacher or have a profession that has to do with English, they might not have as much of a job.
So you're
supply and demand. It's basic economics.
So you're essentially telling these millions of teachers that will have no job sucks to suck.
I'm saying they should find work elsewhere or find a job that people need. If nobody needs a job, then why should they have it? Like liberal arts degree. If nobody wants it and it's not necessary in our economy, then should we be compensating them for something that the regular citizen doesn't need or want? Should we just be paying people because they're bad choices?
Okay, thank you, candidates. The question segment of the debate has concluded. If the bell rings, please stay in your seats so the candidates can give their final statement. To conclude this debate, each candidate will give a final closing statement of 2 minutes to the audience for why they should be elected President of the United States. Noah, you may speak first. You have 2 minutes.
So to reiterate some of my policies, we believe in free immigration, open borders. We should not tell people who can and cannot come into our country. Secondly, we believe in free healthcare. Why should somebody be afraid to go fix their body and fix something that's a part of them just because it's too expensive? So people shouldn't be not going to the doctor because they're worried about not being able to pay for their kids' food and have enough money to buy food. We also believe in drastically taking down a lot of gun control policies, and then we believe that our solution to inflation would, number one, being more self-independent as a country, and number two, I didn't get to finish this policy, but kind of helping our supply and chain demand in the country. We believe in a lot more magnet trains. We think that you should be able to use magnet trains, which have, according to my study, the bullet train uses 88% less energy and produces 92% less carbon emissions per seat when compared with air travel. This will drastically help climate change, and it will help people be able to move around the US not only safely, environmentally friendly, and it will help the supply and demand. This will not only fight inflation, help the economy, and drastically lower our carbon emissions. That's all I have. I don't need to have a long speech. That's all I need.
Okay, Justin, you may speak next. You have 2 minutes to make your final case for why these voters should elect you as President of the United States. 2 minutes.
You know, when I walked into this room, I had a pre-written speech. But after the blasphemous things I heard Noah said, I had to speak straight from the heart. The campaign that Noah is supporting is one that will detriment the United States people. Every single policy he has brought up today will ensure that every one of you will not have a future. And if you do have a future, it will be one ridden with poverty and death. Is that any future that you want as American people? I don't think it is. When we look towards Noah's policies, he runs on the idea of a perfect world. However, we don't live in a perfect world. My policies support the idea that we will do the most good for the most people in the world that we actually live in. For that reason, Noah's idea and the thing he just brought up about trains cannot be held up in today's debate. Of course, he brings up this idea about trains, in which I do support trains. What are trains? What are trains when your citizens are dying because of poverty? Ultimately, we see my opponent relies on the idea of socialism, but I'm starting to question whether he even agrees in that himself. Some of the things that he said on stage today would lead me to believe that he doesn't even believe in his own party. Do you want to vote for someone who does not believe in their own party? Or do you want to vote for someone that will reunite the nation? They'll ensure that people can come into our nation both quickly and safely. I think the answer to this question is obvious. I think obviously there's one candidate who will win this, and it is me, Justin Vargas. Support the bag. I've got this in the bag. Thank you.
Okay, the debate has officially concluded. Let's give a final round of applause for our 2 candidates. And a round of applause for Mr. Gleis.
So first, I just want to know what your name is, what party you represent, and what ideals your party.
Right, I'm Justin Vargas. I support the Bag Party, and I want to run on a platform of American ideals, ensuring that anyone who lives in America can ultimately live a great life.
Cool. And then I had one question. So you talked about your gun control and how there's a lot of mental health problems behind gun violence.
Right.
So what do you plan to do in terms of mental health institutions and getting people the help they need, and how do you plan to make those safe?
Right, well, we see right now that especially in youth, there's an inherent lack of mental health treatment. And again, I already said this in my debate, but right now the United States government puts a lot of money into its military, so much so that if we took some of that money to encourage making these mental health institutions, new mental health institutions, we can ensure that these youth can get the help that they need. And of course, with that comes the idea that we will make sure that these mental health institutions themselves are run properly. That will be a guarantee under my presidency.
Yeah, so you talk about focusing on mental health, right? So when it comes to gun control, whether the policies, when it comes to owning a gun, what is your ideas on your, I don't know, what is your point on gun control?
Right, so of course I do support the Second Amendment. I think that every man and woman has the opportunity to own a gun. However, we do need to see that there is some reform when it comes to gun control. Of course, mental health is the main way I will do this. However, I don't support the idea that we just give every citizen a gun, as my opponent agrees with. And I also don't agree with the idea that every gun should be eligible to be used by your average American citizen. Of course, I don't want to go too specific into it. However, we will see that there will be reforms within gun control, even if citizens can own guns.
Cool. And then going on to healthcare, I was wondering, how do you plan to make healthcare easy and accessible when it comes to minorities?
Right, so we see right now that when it comes to minorities, they often, unfortunately, live in places of poverty, and that's a really big issue. Those people in poverty can't have access to this healthcare. However, under my presidency, we see that we reform healthcare at its roots. Not only will we ensure that there is less poverty for these people in minority groups through my foreign policy, we also see that our healthcare will be completely reformed from its roots. It won't be free for all, as my opponent supports, so our taxes will stay low. And then we will also ensure that our public health as a whole is increased by, again, using some of the funds from military into supporting our underfunded public health. So with all those policies combined, we will see that these people in minority groups will hopefully not be living in as much poverty, and they will get the health care that they need.
All right, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So what is your party really about, Noah?
I think we're about like the individual man. Our big thing is equality of opportunity. You know, whether you can see with our gun control or immigration, we believe that everyone should have the ability to equally come into and enjoy all the freedoms that we have here. Everyone should have the equal ability to be able to defend themselves against either the government or crime. You know, that's one of the big issues about having a big, strong government is they can take control of the power. If you have armed citizens that are able to fight back, that you take away that and you're able to have big advancements with being able to, you know, have these big social programs and all these things. It's a nice, like, our society runs off the balance and checks of power. That is a giant one right there.
So going back to when you were mentioning about teachers' jobs, what kind of jobs do you plan for these teachers to have once the job shortages comes to, you know?
So, like, I was talking about having, like, trade schools, and I definitely think a lot of jobs are needed. A lot of teaching positions will be used, but I'm saying, like, maybe not all. Like, I said, if you want to be a welder, you shouldn't have to learn about history. But there are plenty of kids that are very interested in history. You know, it's not like me saying, all high schools are immediately burnt down and no teacher gets a job. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we should have more individualized and specialty learning. If I want to become a doctor, why should I need to learn how to do poem analysis? Like, me personally, I love reading, but I also love science. So I would love to be in a poem analysis class. Like, I have a teacher named Mr. Knight who challenges me all the time. He's really awesome. And I also have a really great biology and like science teacher named Mr. Dupree. And I can have both of those, but if I really didn't like English, maybe I wouldn't want to take his class. So I want to give people more ability to choose how they want their learning to go. You know, our brains, when we fill it up with all this information, like maybe I have a bunch of weird fun facts about Neolithic or like ancient people, but I want to be a doctor. I should have fun facts about the human body and stuff like that. And you can pick and choose, but I don't think like the government should be like, you have to learn this. Like, some things I think are a little bit irrelevant to our general well-being.
Cool. And then I really liked your point about the how we should let the immigrants, like how, you know, immigrants created this country and how we should let them in and not deny their access. With border control and all that, how do you plan to assure their safety if you open these borders?
So we've had like right now, I used to live in Texas, and what like some of my best friends, you know, they had a high Hispanic population. A lot of my best friends had parents that had, you know, hopped the border, were there illegally. And I remember talking to some of them about it, and like they were able to find jobs. I feel like a lot of people here have families, and it's not like, you know, America's full of jobs, we have no opening. A lot of places in America, like we need people. Like, we're in an employee shortage in our county. You know, we could use more immigrants. And yes, there can be issues at the border with things like illegal, or not illegal immigration. I don't think people should be illegal, but illegal drugs and contraband that could be brought over. And I think we should have people maybe check, but I don't think we should just kind of grab people left and right and just be like, oh, see you, you're not allowed to be in our country. I think we should let these people come in and let them help us. We are a nation of immigrants. That's how we were founded. That's how we've continuously stayed in power. It's our diversity and our ability to find union and togetherness in that diversity that makes us strong.
So adding on to that, so yours and Justin's ideals match up in the fact of your immigration control. So what makes you think that your immigration control is better than Justin's, and what makes you think that yours is more profitable or better for our country?
We both believe in immigration. We both think we should have it, but mine's is a lot more liberal and equal. So he kind of hides under like the, you know, oh, well, we have to secure our borders and make them safe. And that's kind of what we do now. You know, oh, well, we can't let all these people in because we need secure borders and we need safe borders. I think that lets us kind of play God in a sense, and being, you get to have, because people are usually coming here for a better life. If we say, you can't come and have a better life for your family and your friends and your children. You know, people are, whether they're escaping religious, economic, or just some type of persecution or just a bad life, they're coming here to better themselves and the people around them. I think that we should just allow people to come unless they have like a criminal history or are trying to bring contraband over. I don't think we should be able to play God and be able to say who gets to come in, who gets to come out.
And then my last question for you, with your gun control policies and like giving citizens guns, how do you have any sort of like gun control laws when it comes to giving citizens guns and letting them own one?
So I'm pretty much just going away with a lot of kind of modern gun control. Like, obviously there are some kind of like common ones, like I'm not going to let anybody own a nuclear bomb or a Tomahawk missile, or probably not a bazooka. You know, I don't think, like, weapons that are purely and only able to be used for mass destruction. Like, you can't use a bazooka for self-defense. You know, you can't, somebody's mugging you, you can't whip out his bazooka and try to shoot them with it. Like, it's kind of just given, and if that wasn't present, then I'd like to say that. But we look at places like Switzerland, where they had, and they've gone down a little bit, but they had like one of the biggest like per capita gun use, and the military gave their citizens guns, and a lot of them had to go through military training. And they had like almost zero mass shootings and like zero school shootings. Like, they don't have a very high gun, you know, death rate. And I think we can find a middle ground. And I think it's really good that we're able to have this debate and kind of at least talk about it and have a grown-up conversation about this. And I think that's the first step to really fixing our gun control policies in America.
Well, I think we have to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time. This has been the EVTV mock debate commentators. Thank you for watching.
See ya.